guys, we're back with another episode of the Principal's Chair, and today I'm here with Dr. Melissa White, and I'll let her introduce herself.
Dr. Melissa White. I actually teach theater here at DR Hill, but one day I hope to be able to move on to the college university level, and so that's what's my doctorate in. It's higher education, leadership, and administration.
Okay, cool. So the reason why I have Dr. White here today is because we connected on a topic. I was interested in going back to school and studying for my doctorate, and I got a hold of her dissertation. And when I found out what the topic was, it interested me a lot because it's a hot topic that we all think about, especially as educators, and
Yes.
wonder how it affects our kids from day to day. And then I'll let you talk about the topic.
All right.
Introduce it.
The topic is how 11th and 12th grade teachers perceive a solution to grade inflation and social promotion.
Mm-hmm. Explain what that means, because I know a lot of people probably wouldn't off the bat understand what that means.
Yes, social promotion is promoting a student regardless of their performance academically.
Mm-hmm.
It focuses more on their social well-being than it does their academic success or their proof thereof.
Mm-hmm.
And grade inflation is a tool that is typically used to make that happen. Actually, it's giving grades to students that they didn't necessarily earn.
Mm-hmm. So, and I started teaching maybe almost 7 years ago, and I kind of was introduced to the whole thing of give this child a 50, even if they didn't turn the assignment in. So, just to kind of start the conversation off, tell me a little bit about what you think, and I'll share my opinion on it too. What do you think about being that as educators we have to give a kid that 50, even though they did not earn that grade per se, even by putting in the effort to complete an assignment or being in attendance for an assignment?
To be honest, what set me on this path was I was fed up with the participation award. And I feel like grade inflation, social promotion is nothing more than an educational participation award.
Mm-hmm.
It basically says that you showed up to school.
Mm-hmm.
That does not prepare the students for the real world. It
Right.
really does not. And for a student to constantly feel win after win after win, they have no idea what it feels like to lose on occasion.
Right.
They don't know how to pick themselves back up and do better for the next time. It really does a disservice to the students because they actually don't develop coping skills that are necessary to improve not only themselves but their performance in society, grades, jobs.
Mm-hmm.
It does not prepare them for the real world at all.
Right.
To not feel that loss occasionally.
Right. So when they hit that roadblock, that thing that actually challenges them or actually holds them accountable,
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of like, where do I go from here? I don't know where to go next.
Correct. And the findings actually noted when I was shocked when I talked to these teachers. It was right out of COVID. We had been on about 2-3 years of lockdowns, altered schedules, split. Sometimes they were at home, sometimes they were here, digital learning or in face-to-face learning. And a lot of the teachers were noticing these points of entitlement
Mm-hmm.
coming up. These students felt like with all of these new participation grades coming in that you owe that to me.
Right.
And where they actually did absolutely nothing to earn that. And as it grew and became more and more of a problem, not only did they lack that understanding that they're not owed everything,
Mm-hmm.
there was also a lack of academic coping skills.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever they would fall down or whenever they were faced with the grades that they truly earned by teachers who wanted to stand that ground, which I commend them for.
Mm-hmm.
When they stood that ground with the students, they couldn't figure out how to make it right.
Mm-hmm.
And this lack of academic coping skills just continued on. And part of my study was to see how what we do in K-12 affects college freshman retention rates. And it's
That was my favorite part of the study.
it was astounding at how the colleges and universities have been vocal for years, not understanding why there is such a gap into what they have always expected versus what they were actually starting to get. And I as I went through my studies in my doctorate, I started noticing that there was a pattern there, and that's what set me off into the research.
Mm-hmm. Wow. And you know what's crazy? I actually had a meeting yesterday that brings me to a point that you hit, when there are kids who, even from the K-12 level, you hear all the time, well, this kid was always an A student. This kid was always a principal's list, or an honor roll student. And then once they move from elementary up to middle school and they hit that first challenge, and then the question flips from, as a parent, the question flips from, well, Johnny, why does your grade look like this in math class, to Dr. White, why does his grade look like this in your class? You know what I mean? Because they've never hit that challenge to say, okay, this is on me and not on the teacher, because like you said, that expectancy to be given a grade that you didn't earn.
Yes.
Now, what does that do for our kids who leave from high school to college? What type of adults does that produce? What type of adult does that produce? Can you talk about that?
Absolutely. I mean, being a professor myself, I have come across students who, there was such a gap there. They could not understand how what they were doing in high school that was earning them an A was all of a sudden an F.
Mm-hmm.
And there was, and part of the grade inflation is not just the grade itself, but it's the level of work being given to the students. Typically will fall under what they're capable of.
Mm-hmm.
There's no raising the bar in a lot of circumstances, and that was another part of the grade inflation that was becoming extremely evident. Professors were having to most of them were standing their ground, but some of them were falling into that, well, we need to do something in order to meet them where they are and bring them up. And so that was causing remedial courses to have to be offered for free
Mm-hmm.
to these students to try to get them up to speed with their peers in the universities.
I noticed that happened, and I graduated high school in 2012. I noticed that happened with a lot of athletes, right? You have an athlete who has Ohio State talent, but doesn't have the Ohio State academic capability. So, and that's when I first started to notice that students from high school were going into remedial classes.
Yes.
That they needed to actually get up to level to be able to perform academically, along with the athletics.
Correct.
So,
and what you just said is actually one of the reasons that a lot of the remedial courses started to be offered, because their athletes that they needed in their programs couldn't perform academically, so they were actually failing out
mm-hmm.
of the program, losing scholarships, and that was one of the things that they needed to implement in order to keep their programs going.
Right. And then that goes back to society, right? Now, you as a coach, I think, as a coaching staff, when stuff like that happens,
Mm-hmm.
speaking to athletics, why is this kid not playing, right? It's more so on you as the coach, why is this kid not playing with as far as athletics go? And then when it comes down to, the kid not having the grades or the academic praise that they're so used to, now it's your fault as the professor.
Yes. That again falls under that entitlement, that sense of, well, this has always been given to me, why can't you get, it's your fault.
Right. I saw that in the study as well.
Yeah. They're not being held accountable for what they do. Part of things that have become different over time, in that losing that sense of what it feels like to lose sometimes, that sense that you're always right, you're all, sad to say, the world revolves around you.
Mm-hmm.
And that mentality has become more and more with students, and that is causing a huge roadblock in their own understanding of how they interact and function in a society. It's so much about them that any roadblock that they come across, it's their fault. I couldn't have done anything wrong. I've not been told that I'm in error on anything.
Right.
And it's just that it's becoming a bigger and bigger issue.
Right. So, and I think, with adults who have already gone on, we're kind of set in our ways and things like that. But what can we do as educators on the K-12 level to help our students moving up to college? What can we do to kind of help that? And I ask you this, and this is a safe space because I know that a lot of teachers don't get the opportunity to talk about this type of topic freely because of what will be said on the back end. But me personally, I think that I'm a person who I like to think about stuff without the emotion attached to it.
Yes.
And I know we're human, we get emotional, but sometimes it's good to look at things without the emotions attached to it and look at it for what it is, right? Yeah. Our kids do have a sense of entitlement, but what do we do to combat that now?
I can speak on what has worked for me. What as a whole needs to start happening is when it comes down to a situation, sit down and have a discussion with that student one-on-one and talk to them about, okay, so what result did you get? What did you put into gaining that result? And start changing the vocabulary. Instead of I'm giving you something, you've earned something. Discuss the behavior, discuss the lack of effort or efforts thereof that brought the student to that situation, so that they can start to process, oh, I did play a part in that, and continue to work through solutions. Okay, well, we're here now. Where do we go from here? How do we take this moment, learn from it, and improve and move to the next step? Instead of just giving into their fits of rage or their tantrums of entitlement.
Please repeat that again.
Stop and say, wow, you had some skin in that game. And so let's take a look at what you did to bring you up to this point. And then, if it comes down to it, we'll talk about what I did that brought us to this point, or what how I graded, or how I looked at your effort, what all was involved in this situation, and allow them to process through that.
So kind of getting into that quality over quantity
yes.
type of deal, because a lot of people feel that, oh, I did a lot of work, but what is actually the quality of that work? You know what I mean? Because, people can, and especially our students now, there's a lot of students who will receive a lot of busy work, right, from their educators, and automatically think, okay, since I did all of this work, I deserve X grade, right? But what is the quality of the work that you're doing?
Yeah. To me, quantity, that just says that you can sit down and you can do things.
Right.
But when you start looking at quality, you start looking at, okay, if they are succeeding at this level of questions, at this level of the style of work or project, let's take them to that next level where a little more cognitive ability has to be brought into play to get the assignment accomplished. Don't add time to it.
Right. And I think that's where a lot of us get stuck.
Yes.
Right. You have kids who can do and kids who will do.
Yes.
Right. And the quantity that I'm talking about is the amount of time, right? We have two kids who perform academically on two different levels, but this kid puts in that time and has very high quality work, meaning that I put some thought, I put some effort into this. My communication and my work is clear, but then you have another kid who just puts in the time, right? That the quality is not quite there, but I expect the same grade because I put this amount of time into it. That's not fair, and I think that's where we are now.
It is, unfortunately. Now, the one thing I will say is, at first when I heard about Avid coming in, I'm just gonna throw that in there, I was like, oh, another program that I've got to learn. But I'm actually seeing that Avid is a culmination of a lot of best practices that are proven, that are coming in, and it's actually not just putting things back on the students, it's also challenging the teachers to take what they thought they knew and take it to the next level, to understanding that it's not quantity, it is quality.
Right.
And it is that bringing into the mindset of your student has a cognitive ability. You have to determine what that cognitive ability is,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where you meet that student and bring them forward.
Yep. Yep. And I do think Avid allows you to, see where your kids are and allow them to see where they are themselves and the parents.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Just by increasing that organizational skill, increasing those organizational skills,
Oh my gosh, yes.
Those cognitive skills, and that's a very important piece, because you mentioned being able to cope with a loss.
Mm-hmm.
That is something that takes a high level of cognitive ability.
Yes.
Right? And those are things that we have to teach, not give into those fits of rage or bouts of anger, whatever the case may be. Teaching our kids how to think, how to accept defeat and move forward from that.
Yeah. Here's the irony in that what they wanted to do by protecting their social emotional well-being,
Mm-hmm.
they've actually left out the part of learning to cope with things like that, and have left their social emotional understanding at a toddler's level.
Yep.
I mean, you have 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 18, 30-year-olds out there unable to process stress.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't know what else to do other than to lay down on the floor and have a fit. Just to kind of put hyperbole to that.
Or on social media.
Yeah. And so just kind of bringing that, it's good to look out for their social emotional well-being. That's what we're here for.
Right.
But at the cost of processing that, they have nothing other than everything's just been given to them. And there's no building that skill. It's not something that happens overnight with someone.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that with Avid, I have what I was going to say a minute ago too. I have never seen a program so well balanced to where all three players in the situation are included.
Mm-hmm.
Not only in the knowing, but in the doing and in the process.
Yep.
So I think with that, we're hopefully going to see a shift in that social emotional ability.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to see these students grow cognitively and according to their social emotional learning and understanding.
Mm-hmm. And I don't know if it's just our state, but I've noticed that there's a lot of schools and a lot of school districts moving to be Avid schools and Avid school districts. So hopefully it does increase, especially in South Carolina. Is this still a thing where the state of South Carolina is one of the more lower performing states as far as reading ability goes? Is that still a thing? I don't know right off the top of my head, but I know at one point we were.
It's been a little while since I don't teach English anymore. It's been a little while since I've looked at it, but the last time I looked at it about 3-4 years ago, it was.
Yeah, same.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. So I noticed that there's a widespread now, and like I said, hopefully that'll be something that we can actually build on for the future. Now, my next question is this, and I want to end with this to kind of create like a cliffhanger. And this is another hot topic that we can kind of dive into, the grading scale. It loosely relates to your dissertation topic. The grading scale. Mm-hmm. You have people my age. I'm 30, and I can't remember exactly when the grading scale changed. Mm-hmm. But I do want to do a part 2 to this video.
Absolutely. And
kind of discuss the effects of the shift in the grading scale, right? Mm-hmm. My question is, are we really lowering the standard, or are we doing something to actually benefit our kids that we have in this day and time?
Taking a look at the grading scale. In K through 12, you have the 10-point scale. Mm-hmm. However, in colleges and universities, you still have the 7-point scale. Mm-hmm. So actually, you're making the students, or that philosophy, that grading scale is making the students look good for the universities, not necessarily accurately representing according to the university standards what they're getting.
Yeah, and that's a hard topic for a lot of people. A lot of people don't want to accept that, man, because
really
we hear it too often where they've never done this before, never failed at that before. When you start to move up in the world, things get a lot more difficult, even past college, right? When now we have so many people who are so sensitive over their beliefs or what they think should be and what should not be. Right. But when you get to the real world, there are people out there who don't believe in the same stuff that you believe in. And these are people that you're going to work for. These are people that you're going to work with.
Yes.
These are people that you're going to do business with. And if I don't have the skills to be able to navigate that type of world, how can I expect myself to be successful?
Correct. Again, it's learning how you function in society. That society doesn't function for you. You are part of a greater system. You are a cog in a machine. And I hate to use that cliche, but that's really one of the best ways to describe it. In order for you to be successful in society, you've got to learn how to fit into that society to be that beneficial part out there.
Wow. That's amazing, Dr. White. Man, we got to do a part 2 to this. So, all right, that's our time for today, y'all. But we're gonna definitely do a part 2 to this. This conversation was really, really, really good. If you want to get in contact with Dr. White, I'll let her give her contact information. And I'll give mine now. My podcast email is gonna be pcpodcast93@gmail.com. That's pcpodcast93@gmail.com. If there's anything in this video that you heard that you like, that you want to discuss a little bit further, shoot me an email and let's chop it up. And then Dr. White.
Dr. Melissa White, and my email is melissa.rhodes. Recently got remarried. 1270, @gmail.com.
All right, y'all. If you like the video, please like, share, and subscribe, and we'll be back with part 2 with Dr. White.
Excellent.